G'day everybody, how's it going today? Well, now that we have a little time, and I forgot something, I realized I forgot something, and that big thing that I forgot was attendance numbers. It's a big topic on this channel. Forgot to do it at the end of last year, because I was so busy at the end of last year, and I'm still busy, but whatever. We're going to talk about the final results for 2023. And we have some results for 2024 already because we've already had conventions like Further Confusion and things like that. And so we're going to just go over real quick. I'm just going to go over the 2023 numbers real quick, do projections for 2024. We do have results for 2024 for some of these already, so I'll try to implement that as well. So lots to go over, so let's not waste too much time. Okay. So here was the where we last left off as far as numbers go. I had projected 5,727 for Biggest Little Fur Con, 3,602 for Eurofurence, 17,950 for Midwest Fur Fest, and 6,435 for Megaplex. Now, if you recall, it's because I thought, I was trying to kind of adjust projections because there was an explosion after coronavirus had sort of fully recovered, and, conventions started to just run through again. There was a big jump in attendance rates for some of the larger conventions, so I had put that number into there. But those seem to have been overestimations because the results are a lot different. And some of them are for reasons and others are not. Just basically, some of them have to do with that whole inflation and, expensive debt kind of a thing, making it difficult for a lot of people to do large vacations and travel. So that also kind of had an impact in the late quarter of 2023. What you could see here, Biggest Little Fur Con, Midwest Fur Fest was the biggest one so far, and that one. It was still a growth, but it wasn't as big as obviously as I had originally projected. So that's that number there. So that brings that down a little bit on the chart. Megaplex growth, but not as crazy. Again, this one has a little bit of an asterisk to it because this one had to deal with the issue, if you recall last year, of having to restrict attendance to 18 plus only. No people under the age of 18 were allowed, and this is due to laws regarding quote unquote drag performances or performances of non-heteronormative behaviors being restricted to those over 18 in Florida. So they had to do that in order to help keep things, keep the ire of Florida off their back. So that probably did have some impact on this attendance rate. But it still had growth in spite of that problem and that situation. Eurofurence also did not have growth this year. It actually kind of stagnated. It didn't go up or down really, but I wasn't really projecting a large growth. So it sort of took the positive and went negative. This one has to do with the fact that Berlin, Eurofurence in 2023 moved out of Berlin. So basically they moved to a smaller city in Germany. And so there was a move in venue, which always causes an impact, especially if the move in venue is major. But countries in Europe are relatively not too huge. So moving to a different city there is not like moving to a different city in the United States, for instance, or even a different city in a state in the United States. It's not, it can affect commute, but it won't affect it as much. So that's why you have that slight change there. So that is that number there. And one of the biggest rocks, this one hurts. Biggest Little Fur Con got rocked. And the reason it got rocked is for a major decision that the convention made. And by the way, they didn't like Biggest Little Fur Con's tradition. They didn't really share this number too directly. Somebody on Wikifur, thankfully, did their research and they found the number within a blog post that they were able to supply. Um, the year before, for 2022, I literally had to take like, they basically made a tweet where they said, well, we had X number of people respond to our guest survey, and that's and that is this much of a percentage of response. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to take that number and reverse the percentage, and that's how many people you had attending. So I had to like literally do maths to find out 2022's event attendance rate. But that being said, one of the biggest things about Biggest Little Fur Con is that they decided this year and last year, so last year was the first year they did this, to hold the convention in the middle of the week, the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday block, as opposed to the weekend. Now, obviously, that impacts a lot of working furries and furries who don't have a lot of vacation time that they can put aside. It's because it's in the middle of the work week. And it's in the middle of the fall. It's not like a traditional vacation time. So obviously that's going to have a major impact on attendance. Now, it could have been a lot worse, but then again, it did go down by 1,000 guests, which is quite significant, like 25% decline. And that's why Biggest Little Fur Con is in dire straits. Now, the numbers between the conventions are actually still large. The Biggest Little Fur Con, just based on 2023 numbers, is actually still in the top 8. It's number 8. Which if you're doing the math, right? If you're looking at the thing and noticing that this number is still bigger than Eurofurence, and it's currently number 8, you're like, that means, I think you figured it out, that there is another convention here that is actually bigger than Furry Week, than Eurofurence, right? And I think it's even bigger than Biggest Little Fur Con from 2023. I forgot already, but it's basically Denfur. Denfur is the one that's going to be added to the list. Eurofurence is going to be removed from the list, unfortunately, coming in 2024. Now, you'll also notice down here that I said Anthro Northeast ? Because we just had the numbers for 2024 come in, and it's in the top 8. It's actually number 7. I think it's actually above Denfur even. But, and this is the big thing about how I keep track of these things, I only update who is on the list of the top 8 and who's not on the list of the top 8 at the end of the year. And there's a big major reason for this. Sure, Anthro Northeast became number 7 due to their 2024 numbers. But who's to say that, Denfur or some other convention couldn't climb back up, right? Or Biggest Little Fur Con might regain some attendance because now that sort of planning snafu is sort of out of the way and everyone knows it's in the middle of the week, people can plan around it. Maybe it'll continue to grow again. It'll take a bit to get it back to Anthro Northeast numbers, though. I think Biggest Little Fur Con's days are numbered on this chart. And maybe it's fine because I don't think that convention wanted to be big in the first place. I think it was just a weird, pleasant surprise, or maybe unpleasant surprise of how popular it was going off the get-go. Its first year attendance numbers was crazy. It never had less than 1,000 guests in its existence, which a lot of these larger furry conventions back in the day when they first started, they were like in the few hundreds of attendees, right? So all of these other ones had at least had time to put their shoes on, as it were. Biggest Little Fur Con hit a growth spurt right out the gate, probably due to the fact that the western side of the country isn't served as much as the Midwest and the eastern side of this country is, as far as anthropomorphic conventions are concerned. So let's get back to it. So as you can see, it's 4,124, and watch the red line really closely as I move this number over because this is gonna hurt. Boom. See that go? Pew. So the only one it's over is Eurofurence currently, and Eurofurence, as I said, is going to be outpaced by Denfur. So I'll be adding Denfur to this and removing Eurofurence for the next time that we do this. And obviously these are the top. So Denfur is going to be in the top 8 runnings for the 2024 season. And as I said, if things continue the way they're going, there's going to be another major shift come 2025, and Anthro Northeast is going to probably be in the top 8, and we'll remove Biggest Little Fur Con. It's kind of crazy when you look at the story of Biggest Little Fur Con. As you can see, it started in 2013, and it was already up here, matching Megaplex, and Megaplex had been around for a lot longer, and you could see how it just kind of crossed every single convention within its first 5 years of tenure. And it just kept going and going, and it was actually number 3 in 2017, and then its growth started to stagnate, and then Furry Weekend Atlanta, started catching up, getting neck and neck, and then finally in 2021, Furry Weekend Atlanta surpassed it. And as you can see, since the pandemic, there's been a decline in Biggest Little Fur Con, and it's not really Biggest Little Fur Con's fault. In fact, Biggest Little Fur Con, as part of when I did an article about its crazy growth, I think it was back in 2017. I did an article about its crazy growth, and the convention runners are saying it's you can't expect this growth to continue because the Grand Sierra Hotel is basically isolated. It's not like the convention centers in the other places. It's not like there's a hotel block. It's like the Grand Sierra is there, and there's nothing else around it, basically. So it's sort of like an isolated island. And unfortunately, I think the pandemic and that sort of bubble that sort of occurred, the people, especially in casinos, and casinos have been doing really, really well after the pandemic. It was like these standard vacation fare tourist areas really had a boom period because people were sitting at home, they weren't doing anything. So the furry conventions had a little boom. The casinos and maybe cruises, all these standard vacation fares for middle class folks in the United States started to boom off with it. So unfortunately, because of that boom, the hotel people, especially for casinos, see dollars in their eyes, and they don't want to. They probably didn't want to have furries in on the weekends when everyone else was going to come in and gamble, right? Because I think furries are sort of like nerds in a way, so we don't a lot. I'm sure I know of a handful of furries who are probably susceptible to gambling, but I think the nerdiest of the nerdy furries are probably not going to end up in the casino a lot, especially since the casino doesn't allow you to wear masks and stuff like that. So you would really have to you would have to basically take off your fursuit, take off that. You would have to go in your human skin, just go into the casino and enjoy yourself there. But you want to see your friends too. So furries are there for other reasons other than to gamble. Gambling is not their major priority, whereas other folks who go to some place like Reno probably have that sort of thing in mind. The fact that there's also another Las Vegas convention, which is kind of smaller, that is in the town of Las Vegas now, is also kind of drawing away some of the people from there. But that takes place earlier on in the year, so that's probably not as much of an impact there. But that's sort of my what do they call it? Sort of my obituary here to Midwest Fur Fest, to Biggest Little Fur Con, because clearly I think its days are numbered in the top 8. It's kind of it's not surprising, but it's kind of like, oh, we're finally here, right? Where all these other conventions, are finally getting their foothold in the door and becoming major conventions. And Biggest Little Fur Con is going to was the biggest, now it's becoming little. It's almost as if it was predestined, baby. So that's it for That's it for this this episode here. So basically, what we're going to end up having to do here is we're going to make a. So basically, the big things I'm going to have to change for the next time we do this is I got to start putting in 2024 guesses here. And I could do that, but I do need to get rid of Eurofurence, and I do need to add. So we go to 2022 to 2023. So as you can see, Eurofurence had a -9. This had -1,000. So, so like it's very rare actually. If you go back to the beginning of this, like I don't think. Oh, there was some negatives, but it was like coronavirus. So it was kind of like. So these are non-coronavirus related declines. It's very rare. It's not the first time. Midwest Further Confusion had like minor declines. It was really stagnating. In the middle here. So it's not the first time we've seen declines. This is the first time we've seen a decline of 1,000 guests, though. It's the biggest decline I've ever seen on record since I've started recording this. So that's incredible. But basically what that means to me is that so we're going to do our little guess numbers, right? So we're going to sum O2 and says a comma to here, and then we're going to put that like that. So these are all red. Now I will, while I'm here, I will update Further Confusion, because Further Confusion has had its thing already. So according to this, the guess of the non-attendance was 6,267. I know it was not that high. I think it was in the 5,000s. So what we could do here is we look at this here and look at Further Confusion is 5,276. So that was what was there. So 5,000. So that's a decline, actually. Oops. That was not what I wanted to do. My num lock was not on, or I wasn't on the cell. 5,272. And that's the actual number. So that's also starting to show a decline. I'll actually say that this is actually less than what Anthro Northeast brought in. I think Anthro Northeast brought in more than that, I do believe. Anthro New England, I should say. Northeast. I always say Northeast. It's New England. I'm sorry. I've been saying it wrong the whole freaking time. You could say that in the comment section. It's Anthro New England, you moron. Not Northeast. I'm confusing it with Anthro Northwest because there is an ANW. So and I say ANE, I think Anthro Northeast, and I'm probably going to do that until I die. So unfortunately, you'll have to bear with me on that. But yeah, basically, this one had 4,000. No, okay, it didn't actually. 4,482. So, but as you can see, Eurofurence and Biggest Little Furcon, according to this chart here, are already in 9th and 10th place. Now, we only have 2023 numbers for these two, but this one was already less than Denfur based on 2023 numbers. So that's why I'm going to be replacing Eurofurence with Denfur. But Biggest Little Furcon is going to remain on for this year. But if things keep going the way they're going, which they probably will, Anthro New England is going to surpass that. Denfur also hasn't gone this year, so it could go up a bit. and same with Megaplex. So we'll see what happens. It's a very interesting year. There's going to be a lot of shifting going on in my tracking for probably one of the first times since I started tracking that all of a sudden the top 8 is becoming very competitive. There's some of these older conventions that have kind of established themselves in major transportation centers. Atlanta's a major. Atlanta is the airport. Like it's one of the largest airports in the thing. It's where Delta is based out of. Denver, Colorado is a major gateway to the West. Basically, it's basically where the Midwest becomes the West past the Continental Divide. So it's basically also right in the center of the country. So like a lot of people, it's probably pretty easy to get to. Whereas Reno is not quite so easy to get to. It's really expensive to fly there, and there's really no train access that I could see. So as far as that goes, it could be very tricky for it to continue to grow when these other conventions are established in major centers. Not that they won't have their own growing pains. Denfur last year had a lot of hotel issues from the sounds of it, even to the point where one person I recall allegedly lost their car from the hotel. Basically, that got taken from the parking lot or something. I haven't followed up on that one, but it was quite a like oof. That's a big like oof. Like a lot of hotel growing pains with that one. So hopefully that won't impact them this year. It's one of those things where a lot of stresses show up online, but still things continue to grow anyway. Like that one video I did on Anthro Con, and then talking about the issue they had on their first con back from the pandemic, where the law enforcement was being a little heavy-handed trying to clear out the convention center, and because it was after the summer of 2020 riots. A lot of furries were a little wary about heavy-handed police officers, and I did cover that at the beginning of next year. Luckily, it wasn't that kind of smoky that AnthroCon had to worry about in 2023, but unfortunately, they did have to worry about the actual smoky, because smoke from wildfires in Canada actually blew through the city during AnthroCon, which was kind of a crazy mess. But we'll see what 2024 brings us. Hopefully, we won't have as much craziness like that. But I will say it has been kind of a dry winter. So unfortunately, it may be another cruel summer on our way. So until then, until the next time we have more major convention announcements and stuff like that, I'll keep the tabs on, and I will update the tracking service to implement Denfur. And unfortunately, we say goodbye to Eurofurence. So I'll take one last look at Eurofrence's trail from its beginning ports to its final sort of edging here. Eurofurence kind of had a slow curve here. As you can see it, as you can see here, it's like flat, sort of a flatter line, especially since 2020. Now, obviously, like it had its growth, and then the kind of coronavirus hit, and then like it has never kind of spurred from there. But you could see that back in 2010, which is when this chart first starts here, that Eurofurence was like 973 attendees, but it was a small pond, but like everyone else was basically small. There's only a handful of conventions that had over 1,000 attendees. Anthrocon was like crazy much larger. It was like the king of the crop. Like no one could see it coming. That that Midwest Fur Fest was coming on its tail to surpass it. Cheap flight tickets really do help in that regard. Even though I would say that the personality of it is a lot. Chicago's a lot more Chicagoan than it's a little rough. You know, it's a little rougher than Pittsburgh is. Pittsburgh, like, he really did a good job at incorporating the furries into the thing. And as you can see, it's like this sort of bounce here is interesting. I remember when this happened back in 2021, where people were like, "Yeah, Anthrocod's #1 again. Anthrocod's #1," and I'm like, yeah, I'll wait on that, because like Anthrocon, and it's like, it's way too close to call. It's like, oh no, it was right here. I think it was actually, yeah, it was 2022 where they're like, yeah, Anthrocod's the biggest in the world because this number here is bigger than this number here or something like that. Or it's like they even said it like, so it's like people, it's like you gotta wait for everybody. It's just something I'm doing. So, anyways, I'm now rambling and looking at charts and numbers and rambling about them. But anyways, that's what you come here for, I guess. So if you like the kind of content, kick the like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. And we'll see what happens in 2024. And I should probably start to plan my 2024. That would be great. You know, find time to actually plan things out this year, maybe. Would be better. Maybe. Anyways, have a good one, guys.